When I put my foot down and said, this is the way it has to be done, that wasn't because I was confident. I was just going to do what I thought sounded good.
When Boston finally released Third Stage, their third studio album, the mastermind behind the band, Tom Scholz, said, "I knew that if it failed, then I would have no one to blame but myself." It took 8 years between the release of Boston's second album and their third album. 8 years that nearly ripped Boston apart altogether. Boston's debut album was like a unicorn. It turned the music industry upside down. A band appearing out of nowhere and completely rejuvenating the rock and roll scene. It was released on October 1976, and by December, it had sold 500,000 copies worldwide. By January, that number was 2 million. It's one of the fastest selling debut albums in history. More Than a Feeling became a mega hit all over the world. Boston had arrived. The most amazing thing about that first album, though, was that it was, for the most part, made by one man in a self-built studio.
What I need is just the basic necessary equipment. No more complication than required. As soon as you add on more channels than you need or more gadgets, you have more trouble. So I've tried to keep it to a minimum. I keep it very tight so that I can reach all the controls from in a hurry when I'm mixing or when I'm playing.
Tom Scholz, a musical genius of a man, is a very talented engineer, and a lot of his studio was made up of devices he simply invented himself to achieve the sound he wanted for that album.
The benefit of being an engineer and a musician is that you eliminate all the communication between the two. Of course, how do you tell an engineer that you want to be able to do this? I mean, it's not something you can really put into words.
What's even more amazing is that he fooled his own label, Epic Records, into thinking that album was recorded in a fancy state-of-the-art studio in LA. But no, it was a home studio in Boston. What you need to know about Tom is that he is a total perfectionist. He would go to whatever lengths, at whatever cost, and however long it took, to achieve exactly what he had in mind for a song or album. Now, with the huge success of that first album, his label, Epic Records, pushed him to record a follow-up. And he did just that, again in his home studio, now featuring a total of 24 tracks. Very fancy. What resulted was Don't Look Back, released in 1978, an album that Tom thought was rushed. He felt the pressure from Epic Records to release the album quicker than he wanted. Despite that, the album was very well received. It hit the #1 spot in the US and went to sell more than 7 million copies. And yet, Tom wasn't completely happy with it. Don't Look Back was rushed, even though it came out a year after the record company wanted it. I let it go early, and that meant I wasn't satisfied with some of it. Next time, I'm not going to listen to anybody. And Tom was telling the truth there. It would be 8 years before the world saw another Boston album. 8 years. For context, that's 2 presidential terms in the US, or the time it takes for a 10-year-old to legally drink alcohol in the UK. Or you could watch 191,258 episodes of Frasier. It's a mind-boggling amount of time. The first 2 years of that time was spent touring the second album. And that wasn't exactly a great time. When the tour finished, Tom Scholz wasn't sure he ever wanted to tour again, and Brad Delp felt the same. Scholz discovered that making music for fun was very different from doing it as a career.
When I got done with the tour following Don't Look Back, we got back from England, and I decided I had to have a way to work on music without having it be like a job.
Turning it into a job brought extra pressure from label execs, deadlines, and so on. It ruined the experience for him. In fact, it was so bad that Scholz seriously considered leaving music altogether and going back to being just an engineer. Around this time, Scholz was also involved in a legal battle that would go on for years with the band's manager, Paul Ahern. Ahern's original contract, for some reason, gave him a cut of the songwriting royalties for Boston. Now, that long legal battle, as well as the awful experience of touring and feeling somewhat abused by his label, caused Scholz to call a hiatus on the band so he could really take his time with the next album and deliver it at his own perfectionist pace. He even told his bandmates to look for other work in the meantime. Guitarist Barry Goodrow did just that, landing a deal with Epic Records to record a solo album. And this album earned good reviews and had strong initial sales, but things soon got ugly. Scholz became furious when CBS ran a billboard ad saying 12 million people know the sound of this guitar. We'd like to introduce you to its owner, suggesting that it was Barry and not Tom that had created that signature Boston sound. Tom complained to Epic, CBS being their parent company, and they backed off pretty quickly because they were worried that it would affect future albums from Tom. Meanwhile, Scholz did some inventing. He even set up a company to make music devices like the Doubler, the Power Soak, and the very popular Rockman.
So I specifically decided to start a company so that I would have a place to go to work that I could sneak out from without getting yelled at to go write songs and record and so forth.
Epic Records, however, were still waiting for a third album from Scholz, and they were getting impatient. CBS, at this point, slapped a meaty lawsuit on Scholz for breach of contract in not delivering the third album on time. The lawsuit was somewhere between $20 and $60 million, according to some sources. Not only this, CBS withheld royalty payments from the first two albums, hoping that would force Scholz to settle in their favour, and also hurry him up with the third album. That didn't quite work, though, thanks to Tom's nifty inventions. The profits from his Rockman device meant he could avoid giving in to this pressure, and it also meant he could hire a top attorney to help fight his case. Understandably, at this point, Tom said, "I don't really want to work with CBS anymore," and so he began the process of leaving them in favour of a different label, MCA. This caused yet more legal complications. CBS sued MCA and Scholz countersued CBS for his unpaid royalties. In the spring of 1985, a judge said that the CBS lawsuit was baseless and allowed Scholz to release Boston's third album with MCA, which is brilliant. However, that unpaid royalties suit would go on for another 5 years. Scholz eventually won, though. He received all his royalties and millions in damages, which is also brilliant. While all this was going on, the band itself was fracturing. The guitarist, Barry Goodrow, officially left in 1981. And because of a naive deal Tom set up in 1976, Barry walked away with an equal share of royalties for the entirety of the band's second album, despite only contributing to a couple of tracks. Third Stage was finally released in September 1986, 8 years after Don't Look Back. Scholz, of course, wrote and played most of the tracks on the album. He also acted as producer and engineer, obviously. And yes, it was recorded in Tom's own studio. Despite the long wait, it went to #1 in the US and Canada and went 4 times platinum in the States, 3 times platinum in Canada. It also produced the #1 smash hit, Amanda, a song written 6 years before its release. Now, Album 4 would take another 8 years to make. Album 5 would also take 8 years to make. Album 6 didn't take 8 years, it took 11. Tom was involved in multiple lawsuits during those years as well. Amazingly, Tom stuck to strictly analog recording for all 6 albums, and plans to continue that way. But, unfortunately, there's almost no one left locally that can repair or maintain analog equipment. I'm still writing music, believe it or not, with what's left of my brain. It's very frustrating not to be able to go in and record what I hear. There's been no touring or album plans revealed since 2017, and at the time of recording this video, it's been 13 years since the last album. Will there be another? Who knows? Speaking of recording albums in messy legal situations, the Rolling Stones made one while they were in a different country, hiding from the taxman. It turned out to be one of their greatest albums ever. The full video on that is over here.